hey, I'm going to make an angle relative to the floor. I'm just going to talk about angles. We need both of those. And how do we create those? And more importantly, we're going to look at how we're creating that angle of relative to the floor by getting my hip sideways, because that's really going to, and pummeling, that's where we're going to want to get to once we've began our pummeling. There are 3 very good ways to create angles with my legs using my training partner's legs. And if we looked at those 3 to create that angle relative to the floor, one is using my leg. Okay, I tend to call this a stiff leg method because I'm using, my leg becomes pretty stiff, and I'm using his thigh to move my hip and my body into a side-on position. 2 is to use the floor. It's easy to use the floor to move my hips out to the side. Or 3, it's to use his hip, to use my hip, to move my hip and my body off to the side and create that angle from off the ground. So all of those are 3 of very, very good ways. My caveat to using the floor, although it's an exceptional way, we have to be very cautious that he's not able to step over this leg. They can sometimes circle the knee over the top of this foot, and now I end up in a half butterfly guard. So this is quite common. Back in the day, there was a guy named Ted Ade, one of the best guys at his time, and he would do this if you left the foot lazy on the hip. He would circle the leg over the foot and trap the foot. So it isn't too far-fetched that if he has his base about him and I put my foot on the floor, there is that potential risk of him stepping over your foot and putting your foot into the half guard. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. This is a great way to move your hips, but just be aware of that. Most of the time, I like to use an initial foot on the hip and stiff leg method, and then go to a foot on the hip if I need more movement or if I need to hold him better at that angle. I don't usually use the foot on the floor unless I have some sort of problem using the stiff-legged method or the foot on the hip. They're all 3 great ways to move, and I just want to bring to your attention that if you do use the foot on the floor, just be aware that if someone steps over you, you need some sort of follow-up from that. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes that's a good thing, but you'll just need to be aware of it. It might be something that you never run into, but it's a good idea to be aware of that. One of the things that we really need to take a look at too is how you use your legs. I think it's often said that when you're breaking someone down, you've cleared arms, no matter how you've cleared your arms. You need to use your legs to move your training partner forward. If you don't use your legs, you're fooling yourself. Your legs are the most powerful part of your body. So I need to use my legs to bring my training partner forward. So if I'm causing my guard, you'll hear a terminology when we clear arms, however we might clear arms. Let's say we use one of the more simple approaches where we just took double inside. If I don't use my legs, there's nothing stopping him from sitting back and just keeping his weight back. So I could have a training partner here and I move his arms, but nothing happens because there's no weight coming forward. When we're in the passing scenario, I tell my students, you can push as hard as you want on someone. There's a difference between pushing and putting weight into your arms. He should push me, and if he pushes the right way, it's going to keep me flat on my back, it's going to keep my hip isolated, and he can do this, meanwhile, without any weight in his hand. So say I move this to the side, Kyle doesn't fall down. But if he pushes as hard as he can on my chest, he can keep me flat without falling. Okay, so how do we create the weight? Well, we create the weight with our legs, unless he is naive. Now, there are passes where he has to put weight into the arms, or double bicep passes where he's going to need to jump up, and there's going to be this like small little opportunity of getting his weight, it's already coming forward. So we may not struggle with those type of things if we catch him into that middle ground. But overall, a good guard passer isn't putting weight into their arms, they're pushing you. We need to weight him on, so how do we do it? We use our legs. Now, there's a method to using your legs. So everybody has a rib cage, okay? And that rib cage, where it starts, right around the floaters, is wider than their waist. And that's pretty obvious. And when we catch the rib cage, I don't want my knees at the rib cage. I want my thighs at the rib cage. So if you're dealing with someone where you're sitting up on their hips a little, you need to move your hips up and relock your guard so that your thighs are at the floaters. And when you squeeze the floaters a bit, you get a handle because the ribs are wider than the waist. The waist is going to go in at the edge of the lat floaters, and you're going to be able to pinch that in a bit and get grip with your legs. So when you clear somebody's hands, you have the grip of the floating ribs. You bring your knees up and forward, and you see, now I can create that scenario where I bring him in. If his hands are here and I lock into the floaters, and as I move him, if I bring my knees up and in, now we've created that scenario where bang, there's weight into his hands, and we can now take advantage of putting his hands on the floor and getting the inside position. But if I don't create the weight with my legs, yep, I can pummel all day long, I can hold his head, or maybe I can't because I can't reach it. I need to get it, the weight moving forward using my legs. And again, right now, my guard is locked, but it's the knees that's not what we want. I need base, the inside of my quad. Now it doesn't have to be deep, but it can't be at the knees. That's very weak. It's going to be a very